Hey everyone, Evo is this weekend, and I thought, why not show off my brand new leverless controller that I made for Street Fighter 6 in a bunch of upcoming fighting games. This is going to be a very beginner-friendly video if you're looking on how to make your own, and I'm going to show you everything that you need to make a plug-and-play box. You do not need to know how to solder anything or to install any software onto anything. It's going to be very entry-level, very beginner-friendly. So let's get into it and talk about compatibility. PlayStation 5 has quickly become the tournament standard for Street Fighter and for a bunch of upcoming fighting games, as we'll probably see at Evo this weekend. Unfortunately, PlayStation 5 compatibility is not very accessible and is kind of a double-edged sword. There's really no affordable or easy option for true PlayStation 5 compatibility with your own sticks, depending on if you made them or if you maybe purchased a licensed one, they should work fine. But if you do want to build your own, there are a few options, albeit some of them are hard to come by and some of them are a bit pricey. For me, I did pick up the Brook Wingman FGC. It is a USB dongle that will allow you to plug in your leverless or your arcade stick or any other controller you prefer to play with into your PlayStation 5 and play on a PlayStation 5 version of your fighting game of choice. Now, unfortunately, these are hard to come by and they have been out of stock pretty much since they were released, and especially with Evo this weekend, they're probably just going to be further out of stock for the foreseeable future, and they will run you about $50 to $60. Overall, this build, I was missing some of the tools that I needed to make it, and I didn't have a lot of the components, so it cost around $60, but with the Brook Wingman, it was around $120 in total. So if you're willing to justify that for true PS5 compatibility, I'd say go for it, but you just have to be a little patient. So, with that out of the way, let's get into what this does work on, which, good news, it works on pretty much everything. This printed circuit board I picked up is from SGF Devices, and you will need one of these in order for this whole operation to run. This one is the GP2040-CE Advanced Breakout board, and it is a plug-and-play board where you can plug in your wiring to it, and it will run this open source software called GP2040-CE. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably already know what this software is. It's an open source software, it's free, and it will allow you to basically just flash it onto a Raspberry Pi. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, so I opted for the most convenient option, and I think $25 for this was a pretty good price. Now, what it does work on is PlayStation 4, as well as PlayStation 4 versions of games on PlayStation 5, albeit with an 8-minute timeout. So if you're playing for 8 minutes, it will kick you out and you will have to re-plug in your device. There is a workaround where you can flash the DualShock authentication keys onto this board, onto this software, but unfortunately I don't know how to do that, and that doesn't seem to be very well documented anywhere. The GP2040-CE community would prefer that you do not ask about how to do this step because I do think that will get them into some legal trouble with Sony. So please, 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 if you go to the Discord, do not ask about how to do this step. Otherwise, this board and software does work with pretty much everything, and the latency is next to none, and it's very, very nice, very, very responsive, even with it plugged into the Brook Wingman. So let's talk about other components that you're going to need. First, you're going to need wiring. I picked up the 20-pin wiring harness from Brook. It was about $15, and I also opted for the 4-pin connector, and I got this from Arcade Shock, and it was around $3. Now, for buttons, I decided to go with 11 24mm Sanwa snap-in buttons. I know a lot of people do prefer the screw-in buttons. Unfortunately, they were out of stock when I was looking on the Arcade Shock website. And I've also seen people go on to AliExpress and pick up some buttons very cheap as well. So it's kind of up to preference of what kind of route you want to go to. In the future, if I do decide to make another build, I will definitely keep these buttons. And I'm not too worried about the snap-ins because if you drill your hole in properly, there's going to be enough flush between your enclosure and your buttons for it to not, be loose or move around. Now, for the jump button, I did decide to go with a 30mm snap-in Sanwa button. And overall, the theme of this build was kind of inspired from Luke from Street Fighter. He's been my main. I really, really like how he plays, and I just like blue, and I like his color scheme. And these auxiliary buttons on the side are 16mm push buttons that I got from Amazon, and they come in a pack of, I think, 24. and they are in a bunch of different colors, and I decided to go with yellow, white, and black here, for my home button, my start button, my L3, R3, and my touchpad. Now, let's talk about this enclosure. If you're watching this video and you've been on the Fight Stick subreddit, you may have seen a build similar to this. That's because I was very inspired, and I took the same build because the person linked the box in the description, and it was a Home Depot 12-inch waterproof storage case from Huskey, and it's really, really nice and very, very sturdy, and I picked it up for $8. So shout out to that Reddit user on the Fight Stick subreddit. And I will link the box in the description because this box overall, it's tall enough to fit my wiring and to fit my buttons, and it's just really slick, and I really, really like the way it turned out. And it does give me options to kind of, slap some artwork on top of it if I do want to do that in the future. So for tools, I didn't have a drill, so I borrowed one from a friend, and I used I think it was a 16 millimeter to 30 millimeter drill bit. I will link it in the description below. This was super easy. All you had to do was just drill in the hole and make sure it wasn't too big that your button was going to fall through. Now, I do recommend that you wear a mask during this process just because you don't want to breathe in all that plastic. And as for layout, you can get really creative with it. I wanted to kind of go with the standard Hitbox layout. I'm very new to leverless controllers, let alone just arcade sticks in general, and I didn't want to kind of deviate too far from what was already working for so many people. So I did decide to go with the standard 8-button action button layout with the 3 directional buttons and the 1 big jump button. I've seen people use, 2 30 millimeter buttons for the parries or for the drive impacts or something like that. But if you do see here, the black buttons with the kind of white gray tops, I did switch to my drive impact into my parry for Street Fighter 6 specifically. I really, really like this layout just because, those are buttons that you're really going to use a lot. And if you want to drive rush and stuff, it just makes it a lot easier. And if you're wondering how I stenciled this layout out, I kind of just put my hands on the box and put a dot with a marker of what input was to which finger. And it worked out really well. And I just made sure that when I drilled, I left a little bit of room between buttons so I didn't break the plastic and make too big of a hole where I couldn't put either button in. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. At the end of the day, I'm really happy with how this build turned out. And this was something that I really, really wanted to do for the past couple months since Street Fighter came out, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I'm just glad that I was able to accomplish it and able to build it. And I hope that this video can help you guys make your own. And don't be overwhelmed if you don't know how to do this and you need help. Reach out to me in the comments. There's a bunch of awesome videos in Discords and threads that you can go to help you build your own. But that is going to do it for today, and I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Have a good Evo if you're going to Evo, and I will see you on the next one.